Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. And pardon us for being a couple minutes late. Technical difficulties. We're out here in the beautiful woods of High Springs, Florida, with Danielle and Susan, and sometimes Michael's and my phone don't connect very well. But we are here, and we welcome you to the show. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1. That puts you in queue to talk to us. We would love to hear your comments and your questions, and we welcome you to the show. Hi, Michael.
Hey, sweetie. Delighted to have you, each and every one of you, with us today. We are here in, I don't even know, show number, probably 500. And that means there are around 500 hours of archives on our website if you want to tap into any of the other shows that we've done. And, Jeanie, is my voice not strong enough?
Are you what? You're coming through fine.
Say it again.
You're coming through fine. I didn't hear you there.
Good. So, project is that of healing ourselves, each other, and the planet. We're here with Mindshifters. When someone begins to work with tools, the group that form to study, work with the tools are called group. So Mindshifters Radio is about forming support for letting go of everything left of, everything that never belonged with our structures, and returning to our essence. And our essence, our definition of the essence is just hold a newborn child, you know exactly what human life is. So we're here to support you in the return to your human life, if you've left it, which is pretty traditional in our culture. Our minds tell us hostility and fear is the way to go, and we're only hostile and fearful because of what somebody else did. So our message is that if I'm in some sort of turmoil or trauma, some form of hostility or fear, then I have an error in my database. I have an error in my internal operating system. And that error causes my mind to use my hostility or fear to try to get what I want. And so the person in hostility or fear will always be about, well, you have to change, you have to do this to give it. They forget that their hostility and fear is an indicator that their minds are using corrupt data to produce the output of the mind. And so forgiveness is what corrects that. And, of course, when the stress is up and the chips are down, the best thing we want to hear is that I have to do something. I have to change. I have work to do. We always want to focus on how it's all somebody else's fault. And if they just changed, then everything would be absolutely okay in my life. Well, if they changed, everything wouldn't be okay in your life. Your hostility, your fear would still be there. It's time to take responsibility. It's time to receive support. It's time to delete, remove all hostility and fear. And the word forgive represents, from the ancient Aramaic, the tool for removing what never belonged. You know, who in the world ever heard that forgiveness is about removing content from your mind? No, the world has taught us that forgiveness is about letting somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of us. So our invitation is for you to be willing to learn the tool of forgiveness, to learn to remove everything from your mind that never belonged there, every form of hostility or fear. And if you find yourself getting into deeper and deeper levels of hostility or fear toward any given object of attention, you find yourself wanting to make war on them, notice that you're following the behavior of your power person. How did it feel when your power person raged at you? How did it feel when your power person dissed you? How did it feel when your power person used the tone of voice that you're now ready to use on someone else to try to correct them, which really means I'm trying to change them so they don't ever show me this part of my mind that holds my pain again. And we're here to support you in recognizing that if you're in that posture, it's time to stop the lie. It's time to stop the pretense that it's about somebody else. And it's time to accept support and guidance. And that support and guidance is not going to be telling you all kinds of wonderful things that you want to hear necessarily. It's going to be showing you the part of you that's in need of healing. Now, one of our projects, and it's been going on for over a year now, is that we've been inviting people to become part of the team that changed the world, that become part of the team of people who, not that I know anybody, including myself, that's fully there yet, but part of the team that is literally physiologically incapable of using any form of hostility or fear. Literally getting to the point where hostility or fear isn't even an option because your mind is incapable of generating that energy. That's where we go, is into that level of awareness. And that means that 24/7 you'll be in a human life. Guess what's that to do? That eliminate war on planet Earth. And when we eliminate war, it will be because we've eliminated the reasons for us to blame somebody else for what's going on inside of us. When we claim our true selves, we have true total connectedness and abundance, and making war on someone else isn't even an option anymore. It's only the non-being mind, the mind based in hostility or fear, that's capable of that. So we invite you to become part of the team that changed the world, and we're delighted to be here to support you in that project. Jeanie, do we have any callers? Is Dr. Tim with us? Is David with us? And tell us what's happening.
No, David and Tim, neither one are with us, and I don't see the regular Heartland number on here either, so I don't think they're with us either. And, hand just went up, though. Area code 702, you're on the air.
Hello, Michael and Jeanie. This is Joanne from Heartland.
Hello,
Hi there, young lady.
Hi. Rick and Jannar and I are here. So, Michael, we started a conversation last week where I had a question that had to do with the personal code. And so, of course, my ultimate goal is to change my personal code. So I'm looking for some insight into how that is unfolding. So I know that, you know, if one is looking, or in my case, to be more patient, I get lots of opportunities to demonstrate that I'm becoming more patient. And in that regard, it's an experience that I had here at Heartland that I would like you to give me some clarity and feedback on it. And it was an incident that occurred between David and I. And David's not here, but we both concurred that it would be something that we could talk about. And so I'd like to share that experience. And then
when you say we both concurred, you and David concurred?
Well, I talked to David, and he knows that I'm introducing our experience here, or my experience of him, let me say. So I'm doing that because I want clarity on where my errors may be showing up. So what the incident was a verbal exchange, and in the exchange, David spoke in a way that, to me, my perception of it was that he was being rude, and I'll just leave it with rude. But my observation, first of all, let me just say that he said, that's your dissociated mind. but the way that he said it, his tone of voice, and something else, I responded or reacted to it. And I just I asked him, if that's the case, why is your jaws, locked? And I just asked several things from my observation. Now, I didn't know at the time where you had this thing on communication about what percent is words and what percent is physiology and what percent is tone. That had not been introduced. But what I was doing was describing my reality of the experience with him. So I know that there are probably several ways to look at this, and one of them is, of course, that some part of me was being reflected back, but my power person would be my mother. My mother was very, strong personality, but she didn't, actually she had a soft voice, but she had, she carried a lot of weight and a lot of power. So I don't know exactly how that's reflecting back, but I do know that I was trained to defend myself, and my way to defend myself is, of course, with my words, with my voice, etc. But this was, as I said, my observation of the exchange was that there were certain things that were showing up, like the tone of voice, the movement of mouth, eyes, head, all of those things came into play. So I would like you to get me on the right track here.
Well, here's where my mind would go with that to move into process is, number one, I don't know whether we're talking about an actuality or a reality. I wish David were on the phone with us so that we could get his reality out of it, because I'm sure his reality is different. But the key thing would be, remember in our Healing Through Relationships work, and you remember when we first talked about you coming to Heartland, is that everybody you've never dealt with is going to show up.
Right.
We've invited them. They've all agreed to come. And so it sounds like, that to some degree there's a sort of a matching bag of garbage. One of the things we point out in the Healing Through Relationships workshop is relationships based in matching bags of garbage. In the world, are called love relationships. And while everything is wonderful and on track and cool, we say, I love you, but as soon as somebody triggers something less than love, then that seeming love, which is really approval, turns into something different. And so the first order of business would be, of course, if David's off base there, you want to hold him accountable. You want support and you want to hold accountability because our commitment is to function lovingly, gently, respectfully. Not that anybody's perfect at it or can do it. So the next order of business, or from an internal perspective, the first order of business would be, and what did that bring up for me? If that brings sadness, grief, fear, rage, or whatever up in me, my first order of business is to change and to heal that part of me that's surfaced by that, because that part of me is calling out and calling forward. We've talked about the work that I did back almost 30 years ago now with Marcel Vogel, who was a 23-year senior scientist from IBM. And Marcel had the instrumentation in the laboratory with which to take a picture of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. So if you had someone who controlled you with their voice, they'd be a power person. And notice when the stress is up and the chips are down, you try to control others with your voice. So there would be a literal high energy wave, I like to call it the psychic megaphone message going out, is saying, I need somebody who will control me, try to control me with their voice so that I can get to feel and heal this part of me that does that very thing. Now, Yeshua would say to someone who's focusing on the other person, and I hear your question is clearly about yourself, but when we're focused on the other person and going, well, look what you did and you better change, Yeshua would say, why are you trying to take the speck out of your brother's eye while you have a beam in your own? So if I have some sort of pain or turmoil, my first order of business is the healing of me. Second order of business is the healing of that other person, or the accountability for that other person. And so at this stage, the first order of business is, what did that bring up for you? And have you done any worksheets around that? here's the bottom line. What I can't hold a space of love for, what I can't maintain my human life in the presence of, is my work. And so what came up for you in that situation?
Wait a minute. Let me repeat that last question. What did you say, maintain?
What I cannot maintain my human life in the presence of. Remember, our definition of a human life is it is the newborn. It is this awesome, active presence of love.
Okay.
So I'm designed to live there 24/7, 365. I'm walking down the road and I meet Joe or Harry or Charlie or Bill or David, and a behavior happens from them that resonates this part of me that takes away from inside my human life, that interprets this in a way that I give up my human beingness, the presence of love in my physiology, and exchange it for some form of hostile or fearful response, the need to control back with the voice or what have you. So if I can't stay connected to love, if I can't stay connected to my human life, my mind will show me that it's they who are doing it to me. But the truth is, it's what they do that resonates in me, what I need to heal. And I'll continuously call that behavior forward so that I get to heal that. And again, that doesn't mean you don't hold somebody accountable who's off base, but the first order of business is, what is it in me that takes me out of the active presence of love when someone else acts like that? What I can't hold love in the presence of is my work, not theirs. My mind will show me that it's their work, of course.
Yeah.
So what came up for you? What surfaced for you in that situation?
Anger. Also, the one thing that for sure I know that I recognize that I got from my mother, who had a very strict control, is that sense that there was an attempt to control me, and I rise up with that. So I would say those two things.
Okay, so when you tell me that anger came up, what you're telling me is that my internal automatic mechanism, Yeshua, they talked about him going into the temple to drive out the money changers.
Right.
And those money changers are symbolic of the parts of us that in our temple rise up to take us out of love. So when you say anger was the first thing to surface, then anger is a drug. And so what that's saying is that behavior resonated something so painful in me that I instantly and automatically wanted to drug myself.
Say that again.
That behavior resonated a money changer in me.
Okay.
And the money changer was one of pain. And when in pain, what most people do is turn to a drug. And I acknowledge and appreciate your efforts to move into your own process here instead of making it about somebody out there. But when anger is the automatic response, what that says is this behavior or this event resonated something so painful in me that I want to instantly use a drug. And many people's drug of choice. Actually, the most common drug on the planet is hostility.
Oh, yes.
And so if I have the capacity for hostility, guess what I'm going to tend to pull out of people? Hostility. Matching bags of garbage. Now, as I look at my goal in that situation, like my goal would have been probably, when you talk about it being a control issue, was to be supported in having total liberty. So that, if you've got a worksheet there, that would be number 3 on the worksheet. Number 1 would be David. Yeah, number 3, if you've got a worksheet there, just jot in. I wanted to be supported in having total liberty.
Okay, wait a minute. Be supported in having total liberty?
Total liberty. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was number 2?
Number 1. Number 1A would be David.
1A is David, okay.
And then your initials.
Yes.
And then the situation is, David spoke in a way that I perceived as hostile.
Okay.
My feeling is anger.
Okay.
My thought is that I'm about to be controlled again.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Then my punishment is
Okay, wait a minute. Hold up.
Back. Okay.
Wait.
Go for it.
About to be controlled, and then?
And then what's your punishment? I want to control him.
Oh.
By giving him the voice. He gave me the voice. I want to give him the voice. Matching bag of garbage.
Oh. Well.
Remember in the codependence workshop, one of the pseudo solutions of the non-being mind is if I could just control everybody and everything, nobody would get close enough to my pain for me to have to feel it, then everything would be okay. And that leads to relationships based in control. You've probably never had any of those control-type relationships, have you?
Oh, no.
No, right. I haven't either, I promise you.
Well, it took me a lot of years, Michael, to recognize that because in my family, in fact, I wrote a piece about my mother. Her name was Mildred, and so I called it the military where we lived, because it was like being in boot camp. And we were trained to defend ourselves. So I called myself, probably not necessarily consciously, but defending or protecting myself with an aggressor.
Right.
But I did get to a place where, this has been some years ago, that I realized that's not what I want to be or how I want to be. And that's part of my quest now, which is why I'm bringing this up with you. Right.
And defense, having a defense within us, even if we don't use it, is the voice that calls forward, that sets up a bullseye in us for attack.
Yes.
One of the earliest lessons in A Course in Miracles, in my defenselessness, my power and safety lie.
Yes.
So the minute that I have a defense, if somebody does this and I hurt, then I hold a defense that, boy, you if you ever do this to me, I'll just sock you right in the jaw. Then
true.
That goes out as a high energy wave and says, hey, I need somebody who knows exactly how to attack me, just like this, so that I can pull forward this part of me that wants to punish by socking them in the jaw, and I can heal that part of me. If the person who has the matching bag of garbage is conscious, they'll go, I have some work to do. And what a true healing relationship is where two people each say, my mind wants to blame you for what's going on inside of me, but I realize I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. So I'm going to take responsibility for me and heal me, and I'll do my best to hold the space for you to do the same. Would you join me in that? Then you've got a healing relationship as opposed to one that just reinforces the conflict and gives you somebody else to blame.
And so what happens if, that's a great scenario, but what if it turned out that one of the two would not be accountable and responsible? Well,
that's pretty common. And what happens is, in the non-being mind, the non-being mind says, well, if you're not going to do your work, then I'm not going to do mine. You can choose to heal yourself. If everybody in the world wants to go to war, you can choose to heal yourself. That will be your choice. They don't have to change for you to. There's actually a story that Dr. Tim shared with us in one of the shows last year where there's a medical doctor who wrote a book, and in this book he recounts his experience of going into Auschwitz to liberate the camp. And there was one man that he saw in the camp who was muscular, strong, well-built, had a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face. And he looked at this guy and said to himself, boy, well, he must have just come in here recently because everybody else is emaciated, destroyed, eaten away, skin and bones. And sometimes later, this medical doctor had the opportunity to medically interview this man. This man had been in the prison camp in Auschwitz. If I remember correctly, that was the right camp. He had been in Auschwitz almost from the beginning, from the establishment of that prison camp. And he's like, well, why aren't you emaciated? Why aren't you in pain? Why aren't you enraged like everybody else? And the man shared his story with him. And he said, I'm Polish. I lived in Poland. And the Germans came through my town. They lined everybody up in the town, including my wife and my 2 children, and shot them to death in front of me. I begged them to shoot me. They would not shoot me because I spoke German and I was an attorney and I was useful to them. He said, I watched them mow my whole community down. And he said, I made a choice at that moment. I had seen, and he's not doing this on any kind of ethical or religious grounds, he was an attorney. He said, I had seen what rage would do to people and destroy them. And he said, I made a choice. I made a choice to love those people. In essence, we'd say to be love in the presence of those people, although that's not the language that's reflected in the story the medical doctor tells. I made the choice to function as love instead of give over to the rage and the pain that I felt. Now, if he had gone to the German soldier and that pulled the trigger and the German commander that gave the command, I doubt either of them would have been interested in a worksheet at that moment. But he made a choice to do something different than most of the world does. If I remember correctly, he was in Auschwitz for 6 years and was strong and muscular and healthy with a glint in his eye and a smile on his face. And with all the factions in that camp, everybody was his friend. There were, Polish Jews and Russian Jews and Italian, who were all at odds with each other, all fighting and scrambling for power and money and food and all the things that would help them to survive it. He was friends with all of them. He was the peacemaker with all of them because he'd made a choice. And so my offering to you is that your bloodline, my bloodline, has made a choice, and it wasn't that one. And we're each efforting to make that choice. And it's not relative whether the other person engages or not. It's helpful. It's nice. It's more fun if the other person chooses to do their work. But the other person doesn't need to choose to do their work for me to stand in my human beingness and refuse to give it up for anything.
Well, I know that on some level, I guess you would say intellectually, but there's always that, desire to have that kind of collaboration or support with that. But I know there are probably other people who want to discuss whatever their issues are, but I would like you to go through more of the worksheet because it all seems crystal clear to me now, and as it has before with other instances, not you and I, but then when I start to do it alone, I get questions, and then the person that I was interacting with is not there. So while you're here, and we'll go through some more of this worksheet that you were discussing.
Well, let's look at, so we're at the stage of looking at your thought that causes your feeling of anger. So now what's your punishment thought? Your punishment thought is, I want to control them. I want to use the voice on them.
Right.
And was there any kind of punishment toward yourself? If you think back to that event, and you're in the middle of it, was there any kind of punishment thought toward yourself?
When I wrote a worksheet, what I presumed to be the punishment of myself was to allow myself to be angry. And I know what anger does, the toxins that get, spilled into the body. So for me to be vulnerable, now is that something that could be looked at in a different or better way or not? Well,
let's look at 1E. You've got the punishment thought, I want to control him. And then the punishment thought toward yourself is, I want to be angry and protect myself. Well, what do you mean that's punishment toward myself? Well, if you look at the chemicals that are produced in this structure when we engage in anger, they are tissue destroying. So you're right, that is punishment. Even though I say I'm doing it to protect myself, I'm using a weak tool trying to produce a strong result. Gandhi says, The tool you use to produce a result always produces a result like the tool. So I'm using a weak tool, anger, to try to produce a strong result, protecting myself. I'd be far better off to use a strong tool, the presence of my human beingness, to bring transformation inside myself and to the situation than to fight fire with fire and go into the pit.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
So then step 2, if you look back at your bloodline, you know about mom and dad, and mom and dad, moms and dads, and their moms and dads. How many generations do you suppose there is of this quality of anger and self-protection?
Well, that's another question that I had, because I've heard you say, even I believe yesterday, where when the stress is up and the chips are down, that we would act like, going 1,000 generations back, we would act like, I don't know if you said the dumbest or stupidest or whatever it was, person
the dumbest,
in our blood.
yeah. The least capable.
Say it again.
The least capable.
Oh, the least capable. Yeah. How in the world would I or anyone know that far back in, generationally speaking, that would be where, I know I heard you tell a story about your great-grandfather. Well, I can go to, levels around that area, but not further back. So I would like some clarity on that.
Well, the process we're engaging in, what you're doing is building strengths in yourself. What you're doing as you do this work is you're building spiritual faculties. One of the spiritual faculties that you are building is one of true perception. Most people live out of false perception. They live out of whatever their carbon-based memory presents to them and have no access to higher levels of awareness. So true perception is one of the spiritual faculties. It's one of the 5 smooth stones of David. And the reason why they called the 5 smooth stones of David in the scriptures was that they were practiced faculties. And that was the way that David took down Goliath. And so this faculty of true perception is one that my mind says to me, in my false perceptual mind, my mind says, well, I have to protect myself, I have to defend myself, and so my rage is going to protect me. That's false perception. That's perception based in hostility or fear and always misleads me. As I build the faculty of true perception, as I build that strength and that ability, I'll be able to decode the genetic signal that comes from 1 or 2 or 10 generations or all generations in the last 10 generations, where that signal comes from. I'll get to the point where I'll be able to decode that directly and know exactly what it means. I think you've heard me use the example of a few years ago, I had a new computer, had problems with it, called the manufacturer, spent hours on the phone with tech support, they couldn't fix it, sent it into them, they ostensibly fixed it, sent it back to me. It was exactly the same when I got it back. Called them again, hours on the phone, send it back to them again, they send it back to me, it's exactly the same. No one in that company who manufactured the computer had the brain cells or the ability to properly decode the error message and repair the computer. In desperation, I called my son's boss. My son's boss name is Graham Gibson. He's actually the actor who's on the audio track of the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Graham actually called me about 7 or 8 years ago and said, Michael, I was in the bathtub this morning asking what my next spiritual piece of work was. And he said, I need to be the character, Richard, in your book, and we need to record it. He had a studio. So we did that. Graham went through all kinds of stuff playing Richard in the book. Heart pain, real physical heart pain as he's playing the character Richard. He's an actor. He's a computer genius. So Graham, I call him to see if he can help me with this computer. And he says, oh, well, read the error message to me, Michael. I said, well, here it is. He said, okay, open a C prompt. How do you do that, Graham? I'll do a control, whatever. Okay, now type this, hit return. Type that, hit a return. Type that, hit a return. There you go, it's fixed. and it was fixed. Now, Graham, who's a former NASA computer scientist, has a computer city business and a computer school in Kansas City where my son studied. Graham is a genius because he spent years learning to decode error messages and do repairs of computers. The company who manufactured the computer didn't have the faculties to be able to do that, didn't have the strengths to do that, didn't know how to decode that. Most people who live in the world just know that somebody gave them the look, they went into pain, their pain was covered by rage, they raged at that person, and they think they protected themselves, and they don't realize they just gave up 2 years of their lives to this intense energy of rage and fear. The person who has the faculty of true perception has someone show up in a rage, and that rage resonates. They can decode the response of great-great-great-great-grandfather who, when someone approached him in rage and stabbed him in the heart, went into deep pain and trauma. They'd be able to decode that out of their genetics. They'd be able to remember that event. They would be able to forgive that energy. And as a result of this person raging in their face, they and great-great-great-great-grandfather and everybody in the bloodline in between would have an energy window opened for that to be released from the genetics. Would transform the whole family system. Doing that work is what in the ancient teachings was called praying for the dearly departed. Praying for the dearly departed was not sitting around hanging around on your hands and knees with your hands folded, going, "Oh God, please release my ancestors from hell. Oh God, please release. Oh God, please. Oh God, please. God, please." God can't do that. God can't change anybody's mind. It's not God's job to do that. Once we make choice, once we create a choice, the Creator has given us that power of choice and will not violate our free will. So once I go in and I decode that message that's generations old and has impacted my father and my mother and their father and their mother all the way back, I open an energy window. And each of us gets to pass through that window and have literally removed that form of insanity from our genetics so that we are freed and everybody in the bloodline has the opportunity to be freed, including great-great-great-great-grandpa, who's still, in the way the ancients spoke about it, still carrying that stain of that pain on his soul. You just wiped it clean for him.
Great. All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
and it does not require the cooperation, the willingness, or the participation of the other person. Again, certainly a lot more fun and a lot easier if you've got that, but it's not required.
Right. Thank you for that clarity. Like I said, I knew that on some level, but thank you for additional clarity.
Cool.
So are we continuing?
So you move now. So you look at the thing that started the ancestral conversation here is to look at step 2, where in step 2 you look at how many generations have been through this, and you say to yourself, I'm going to get big enough in my being to bring resolution to this energy. So that step that says I'm willing to embrace all of this for all my generations. And I like to use a visualization literally of expanding the state of being in me to embrace not just my pain and trauma around this, but in the case you're talking about, my mother's pain and trauma, my grandfather's pain and trauma, my great-grand. I'm willing to get big enough to go through this. You know, there's a word in the Native American system of healing that was called matakwiasin, and what it means is for all my relations. The Native Americans understood that they were not just healing themselves, but were dealing with their genetics. I believe that the Native Americans are one of the lost tribes that go back to the Aramaic language, and that's why they understood that. So I'm willing to clean up my generations. I'm willing to get spiritually big enough to hold the space for all of this energy to be processed. That's the first step in number 2. And then I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. Now, when I say I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing, if the scenario that I just laid out with great-great-great-grandfather being stabbed in the heart and being in pain and rage over it, I may, in the healing of this particular issue, experience this intense, deep, burning pain physically in my heart. So that second step in number 2, what I'm saying is I'm willing to get big enough to embrace this and go through the symptoms of it. I may have this flood of pain and emotion and rage that comes up in me as I do the forgiveness process around this issue. So I'm preparing myself for that in the second part in step 2 by saying I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, or emotional symptoms of healing. I may have thoughts, maybe great-grandfather, as he was dying in that situation, having been stabbed, said to himself, well, I'm just, I'm so weak, I'm so hopeless, life is so helpless, why am I such a victim? Guess what thoughts are going to come forward in my mind today as I do this worksheet? I'm hopeless. Yes. I'm helpless. Why am I such a victim? And so this is the second step in number 2 is I'm going to hold to the active presence of love and process all of those thoughts of great-great-great-great-grandfather that are encoded in my genetics.
Okay.
So how about doing those 2 steps?
Yes. I can do that. I will do that.
Okay, I'm talking right now. Let's do it now.
Oh, okay. So let me just go back. So step 1 is my trigger, and the trigger is...
Whoa. No, we've already laid out number 1. We're complete with that. Now I'm going to step 2. So I'm willing to open and embrace all of these...
Go ahead.
The first, just go through the first step in number 2. The first part of number 2. I'm willing to embrace for all my relations.
I'm willing to embrace all of my relations in this. I'm willing to go through the symptoms of healing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Do step 2.
Okay. Wait a minute. Is there more? I'm trying to listen and take it all in. My plan is to listen to this later when I can so that I can pay attention to what you're saying now.
But I want you to do the steps with me. So you've laid out number 1. I want you to actually read step 2 out loud, the first and second part. Well, you've pretty much done that. So that's step 2 complete. I'm willing to go through the symptoms of healing.
I'm willing to go through the symptoms of healing.
So do you feel like number 2 on the worksheet that's in there in front of you that you're writing on, that you're complete with that step?
Yes.
Okay. Now, number 3, the key way into the dissociated part of my mind is the goal I held for my object of attention in the worksheet. So you had a goal for David. What was your goal?
My goal for David was to allow me to speak to me in, what would I say, a pleasant tone of voice, or, my goal is for him to speak to me in a way that I could receive it. I'm wanting, not the way I want to say it. Give me a second here.
Okay. Breathe. You're right on track. This is awesome.
Go ahead. I was going to say I want David to speak to me in a way that supports my well-being.
Good. Perfect. So mark that in number 2 or number 3.
Okay.
And now I'm going to suggest that you start another worksheet. And we're going to do number 3 around the same issue. So later you can fill the whole step number 1. It'll all be the same as number 1 in this worksheet. But in number 3, remember you talked earlier, one of the issues here, and this is what we call the Hydra effect. As you start chopping off one of these heads, the Hydra was in Greek mythology, this creature that when you chopped off her head, several more heads appeared. So step number 3, there's another goal, which is another worksheet around this same issue, and that is I want David to support me being at perfect liberty.
Oh, yeah. I want David to support me as being in perfect liberty.
Yeah. You sound committed to that one.
I am.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so that's what you fill in the next worksheet.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so we're just going to fill that goal in number 3. And
Okay.
then later, when you finish the primary worksheet, you can go back and fill in number 1 and do the rest of the worksheet. But there's the starting point for another piece of your puzzle around this issue.
Okay.
So now, number 4 is the key to healing. The goal is the key way into the part of the mind that holds the part of the mind that needs to be healed. And the thing that's going to bring healing is when I have love conscious, active, and present in me.
Uh-huh.
So number 4 is that I choose to connect to my newborn state, the active presence of love in me.
I choose to connect to my newborn state, the presence of active love in me.
Right. And one of the best ways I know to do that is to just hold a newborn child, look into the face of the newborn, and smile. You know,
Okay.
your niece that's in the hospital right now. Did you ever hold her as a newborn?
Oh yeah, they were living with me when she was born.
Okay, so here's a perfect place to send some energy to her too. So remember the day you first saw that sweet face and you held her.
Yes.
And tap into that awesome presence of love that she is and that she resonated in you.
Thank you for that.
As you do this, energetically, her laying in a hospital bed right now will be a support to her.
Wow.
And it will strengthen you.
Thank you.
So you want to make sure that love is present in you before you go beyond step 4. And for anybody that's listening, if you're not able to do that for yourself, then tap in. This is where it takes a community. Tap into support, and somebody can hold that space for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 5, I'm going to bring my goal from number 3 down to number 5.
Bring goal from number 3 down to number 5.
Right.
Okay.
Whatever you wrote number 3, word for word, you want to bring into number 5.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
And because the goal is the key way into the part of my mind that holds the pain, I'm going to cancel that goal. In Aramaic, the word forgive is shabag. It literally translates to cancel.
Right.
And so when I cancel the goal, my mind is producing a 9-bit reality based in the patterns of my generations. And when I cancel the goal, I collapse that reality. When I collapse that reality, I open the keyway into the dissociated or hidden part of my mind.
Okay.
And that's where I get to heal that part of my mind. I get to bring that part of my mind directly forward. Rather than projecting that part of my mind into my brain's image of David or someone else, I get to bring that part of my mind forward in the active presence of love.
Okay.
So I cancel my need for, and what was the wording on your goal in number 3?
To support me, to have David support me in being perfect liberty.
Well, no, that was your second worksheet. We want to stay with the first one, the primary one.
Well, we're back to the
Remember,
goal.
you just put the goal in. That's for another worksheet. But we want to go back to the primary one, the one you started with at first. What was your goal there, the wording for it?
I'm trying to connect all of this. What did I do?
The worksheet that you started number 1 in. You have the whole description for number 1. You want to go back to that.
I understood that. I was writing in my notebook, taking notes instead of writing it on. And I'm looking for, what did I write?
So what was the goal you had in number 3, the first goal?
Yes, I heard the question. I'm looking.
Okay. That's okay. Just breathe. That's no problem.
Okay, breathe. Good. I must need another breath.
Okay.
Oh. I know it's
So
here
one of the
before me.
Yeah.
I'm actually.
So remember that one of the symptoms of healing is confusion. Notice that there's mass confusion right now, and that's perfect. That's as it should be. You want to embrace that confusion in love.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Okay, so embrace it. And how do you, by just allowing the feeling to express itself or the experience to spin itself off, how do you suggest that embracing occur?
I breathe. I choose to maintain the experience of myself as the active presence of love. And I let myself look at and feel my confusion. Geez, I had a piece of paper. Where could it go? I'm just sitting right here. That's the confusion.
Okay.
So I embrace that. And it may be, one of the things the non-being mind does is it wants to avoid. And one of the ways it avoids is to create confusion.
Yeah.
So if I get all confused here, I won't have to deal with this. We're getting closer and closer to the core issue. As we get closer and closer, the tendency will be for the stress to go up.
Okay.
And so just gently breathe, keep love present, embrace the confusion, and just go back to the sheet where you wrote the first goal that we identified, which was about David, I think it was David speaking to you in a supportive way that allowed you to maintain well-being.
Right, but I thought that's not the one you wanted.
No, that was the first one you did. The second one, where you just filled in number 3 on the worksheet, was the one for perfect liberty.
Yes. Okay.
So we want to once you do the Hydra effect, once you do a second, a third, a fourth, a 10th worksheet, you always go back to your primary and finish that one out before you go to the secondary ones.
Okay. So
the one about perfect liberty is secondary. We want to go to the primary one, and that was the one to speak with in a gentle way. I forget exactly what the wording was.
In a pleasant tone of voice, or in a.
Okay.
I didn't use the word pleasant, but that's the essence of it. It
okay,
was
good.
Coming harsh, so to me, and so harsh would be gentle or pleasant tone of voice.
Okay, so you wrote that down. So whatever that is, word for word. Now, if you would, read through number 5, from the top of number 5 through the whole thing, inserting that goal in the canceling section.
Okay, what I'm saying is I didn't take all of this down because my intention was to go back and listen. Go back and listen to the radio show and then take the notes because I'm wanting to focus on what you're saying. I know that wasn't going to happen that way.
So I'm here to support you in doing the process now. So I want you to read. You've got your goal clear now, the gentle voice. So I want you to read number 5 on the worksheet with that goal in mind. Start from the beginning of number 5. Are you breathing?
Okay, I'm here. I'm breathing.
Okay.
Yes, I'm breathing. Okay. So on the worksheet that I have for number 5 is where you...
Stop. We've only got a couple of minutes left. So what I'd like you to do is just really crisply follow directions, if you would. So what I'm asking you to do now, with the goal in mind of the gentle voice that you spoke of, the wording that you used there, I want you to read number 5 from the top. Read the whole of number 5, inserting that goal.
Okay, I guess I still, because I'm looking at a worksheet, not the worksheet, and it's not the one that I was writing on. So I guess I still have confusion here, Michael.
Okay. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Here's my direction. What I'd like you to do, because I want to get you through these core steps, I just want you to take the worksheet you've got in your hand, whatever's on it, and read through number 5 from the top, inserting the goal for gentle voice.
Okay.
Can you just do that?
I believe I can. So number 1 is
you're just reading number 5. All I'm asking you to do is read number 5.
I choose to restore, and you said no, don't do that.
Yeah. Number 5.
I mean,
No,
but at
okay. Are you using the 7-step worksheet?
No, this is
Well, that's what I'm guiding you through. Okay, then go to step 7.
Okay, step 7 says, I am not upset at this person, place, thing, or event, but by a reality inside of me. If I'm in pain,
Okay.
I'm in error. Is that the one you want?
Okay.
That's number 7.
Okay. I don't know which worksheet you're using. I wish I'd clarified I wanted to use worksheet, the current worksheet that we've got on the website that we use. So the canceling step, I want you to go to the canceling step, whatever worksheet you're on, and read it. We've only got a minute or so left.
Okay. I believe it's 8. I take responsibility, not blame, for all of my realities. Would that be what you're referring to? There's more to it. Every reality is changeable.
Yeah. I don't know which worksheet you're working with, but there's a canceling step. On that set one, it's probably number 9. I'm not sure. But it starts out with the word cancels in there. Use that step.
It is number 9. I cancel, let go my need, and then so I would say I cancel and let go of my need for David to speak to me in a polite and pleasant tone of voice.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, so letting go of that, and then the next step, 9B, is you're inviting that super process. You're writing Ruka in. So do that next step. I invite.
Okay. I invite the Holy Spirit, Ruka Dakusha, to incline me toward healing, restore me to love, to assist me in keeping love present, and to...
Breathe.
I'm not finished with it, should I?
Yep. Stay with it. Just keep breathing.
And help me in letting go of my painful reality. And then breathe.
Yeah. Breathe. Yes. Big, important step. So how are you feeling right? What's happening right now? What's your feeling?
I feel lighter.
Okay, so number 10, A, the first piece of number 10 is I feel lighter.
I feel lighter.
And how does the situation that you've written about in number 1 look to you now?
In number 1, I feel lighter, and I feel more clear.
Okay, so I'm clearer than I was back in number 1.
I'm clearer, okay. I'm more clearer than I was in step number 1.
Awesome. You got it.
Okay.
So you want to document that.
Yes, I do.
And we're now out of time.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
You're right on track. That was an awesome worksheet. And what do you say tomorrow we start the show out with the conversation and complete that out? But you're right on track. And then you want to make sure, or on Monday, pardon me, but then make sure now that you set a new loving goal from the state of being, from a state of love, toward David.
Okay. All right.
And you
Thank
just
you.
completed a very successful worksheet. Awesome work, young lady.
Thank you so much, both of you. Have a great, fabulous weekend.
You're appreciated. Folks, bring a stranger with you. If you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, come join us this weekend. And we'll be there Sunday at Unity of Wilmington and Monday, Tuesday. Then we'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.